real. You get to shaking that ass on the floor and I see what's real. No disrespect, I just tell it like it is. Do you ever want some kids? What your ultimate goals? Maybe I can help with those. The mo was broke when he made you a blessing. You looking like a whole buffet and I need some seconds. You say you had promiscuous ways, that was back in the day. I'll be alive, I say I did it, that shit was a phase. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place, this nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes, this one right here for real. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby, listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you if you could play it. Won't you take the chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Lady, you so far ahead of these others, just like a ship on the horizon. Picking up on your vibe, signal stronger than Verizon. All the thoughts that I've been contemplating, ain't no time for faking or debating. You the one, ain't no mistaking. Look, I see your swag different. Always carry yourself like you ready, you know the mission. I had to know you, I'm tempted. I can see why you timid. Hold up now, baby, listen. Just take that dance with me. I can show you that there's a difference. I'm locked in. I throw away my playaways because you pop in. A shooter always shoot a shot. With you by my side, I guarantee we'll reach the top. I put that on God and them. I give you all that I got. So baby, take this journey with me. You can pick the time and place. This nigga isn't picky. Smile on your face, I know the deal. Sign and deliver after seal. I can see it in her eyes. This one right here for real. I just wanna have a conversation. No, I'm not your type of baby. Listen, I'm just saying. We can rule the world, just me and you if you could play it. Won't you take the chance with me and have that conversation? I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk, yeah. I just wanna have that conversation with you. Come and talk to me.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another phenomenal and actually special episode of Behind Them Sticks today with your boy Ham Solo here on the TSWS Gaming YouTube channel. And I am here with a very special guest, somebody that actually looks at the science within gaming and how we all perceive it, go along with it, whether we're cool with it or not. She has her sources cited. Let me go ahead and put that out there straight up, because that's one of her catchphrases at the end of every episode that she has. Let me introduce to you guys none other than Dr. Rachel Kowert. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon on an early edition of Behind Them Sticks here with me, Ham Solo, on the TSWS Gaming Channel. It is a pleasure having you here today, and we only have you for like an hour. Technically speaking, 55 minutes. So we need to get down to business, but before we do that, let everybody know where they can find you and also the kind of stuff that you're into and do, because I know that you're, part of Take This, and you got some other things that you're doing. You got your own website, but we're pressed for time, so go on ahead and let me know.
All of the things. Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Dr. Rachel Kowert. I'm the research director for Take This. Take This is the oldest mental health nonprofit in the gaming space. We serve game players and game makers, and we aim to destigmatize mental health challenges and provide mental health information and support to people who make games and people who play games. And you can find me on YouTube at Zeitgeist, where I have a channel where I talk about the science of games, and I always cite my sources, as you pointed out.
Yes, I love that, because I was telling you before the show started that I just think of the PSY when you say cite your sources. I'm just like, oh man, that's perfect. That's you. I mean, really, you can use it for cite and sources. You could use the same thing.
Absolutely, I could. You
totally could.
I need some new branding. I need some new swag. There we go.
There's your T-shirt right there.
Yeah.
Right? But anyways, so I'm here to ask you a ton of different questions. First, I usually like to go off of like the history of like why you got into gaming and stuff like that. But happy wife, happy life, right? And my wife sent me a question, and the same thing that happened when Seamus Blackley I had on this show. He gave me some very good advice, and he was like, "You better go on ahead and knock this out now, so you don't get knocked out by your wife." That sounds perfect. So without any further ado, let's go on ahead and get her question out of the way, because it is really interesting, actually. And this is kind of deep, so she's a philosophy kind of person, right? So she has very deep intellectual thoughts, and this question comes from her saying, could gaming be used as a means to reprogram one's neuro-linguistic programming?
I mean, perhaps. I will say that's not my area of expertise. However, I did just read about some work yesterday about Tetris and trauma. So they did some experiments that found that following a traumatic event, the intervention, people gave people Tetris to play, and they found that it reduced the number of intrusive thoughts for the months following the trauma. And they found this was because, like, the way that the eyes move, they move back and forth, which is similar to a more traditional intervention that you do in psychology following trauma in order to help processing. So knowing that games have the power to kind of change that kind of behavior and processing in our brain, I mean, so I would hypothesize that it is possible. I don't know if it's been done or who does that work.
All right, here's the second part of the question, because like I said, she's thorough. She's very thorough.
Yes.
She said, might emotional intelligence be a limiting factor in one's ability to be influenced by such a game? For example, someone who laughs at a very disturbing image may react in an unpredictable way, whereas someone who can identify the grotesque nature of the image and be appalled is less likely to be influenced psychologically. Or is it vice versa?
Yeah, I don't know if it's if emotional intelligence would impact your ability to be influenced, but instead, I guess, how you're influenced and how the content is making an impression on you. We talk a lot about the way that games can influence the way we see and perceive the world, and it's content, it's also the social context, and it's also individual differences. So yes, I would say that it would have some sort of impact depending on how the content impacts you.
And then last piece, so thorough she is.
It's great.
How does this translate to those men and women serving our country nowadays when a decision traditionally made on the battlefield now becomes a decision made from your couch? Can we predict which individual might be more resilient to trauma based on their in-game responses?
Great question.
Crazy.
Perhaps we can. You know, they are using games a lot more frequently as tools for the battlefield. And for example, the first thing that came to mind when you asked that question is there's work looking at soldiers who've come back from battlefields with post-traumatic stress disorder, and you have them play first-person shooter battlefield type games. And what they find is actually having the control and the ability to make decisions in the game translates into their ability to have control and more lucid dreaming when they have recurrent nightmares based on their PTSD from the battlefield. Games are incredible tools for change. So I think that you could probably find some kind of parallels there between playing these kinds of games and soldiers on the battlefield and resilience building. I could see that being something that's probably being actively explored because the government invests a lot in this kind of research.
Those were some interesting questions to kick off the show.
They were good.
Very, very stiff questions as well. But anyways, oh man, it's a pleasure having you here. Let me go on ahead into my questioning now.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like a damn court over here saying all these questions. But anyways, first of all, what are you currently playing right now, Rachel?
What a question. I have 3 small children, so I don't play that much. It's mostly Minecraft because that's what they're playing. But when I have a minute with my Steam Deck, I am catching up on my never-ending backlog, and I'm playing Undertale for the actual first time. But I finally got to it. So that's what I'm playing these days. What are you playing these days?
Oh man, I'm playing Starfield like a damn
Oh,
fool.
people love it.
I'm happy.
Yeah, people love it.
I might need some psychological help because I am literally going through it playing that game, giving me ups, downs, and all around. It is crazy. It's deep. It's insane. It's a really good
It looks
game.
beautiful.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. It has its Bethesda moments sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but it definitely is the most beautiful game that I've seen come from that studio ever.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I'm very happy with it, and it's taking a lot of my time, which means I must be enjoying the heck out of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But I'm kind of curious as to why you even started or got into gaming in the first place. So a question I usually ask before the show that I didn't get to this last time, just because I was kind of a space cadet a little bit before the show, is I'm kind of curious as to what was your very first console that you ever had readily available in your household.
My uncle bought us an original Nintendo when they first came out. So I was 5. So I always grew up with a console.
I love to hear that. That sounds
Yeah.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
that was like your appetizer into gaming right there, the NES. That was a good introduction. But as you started to grow older and you're noticing, gaming actually means something to me. I like this. What was your
Yeah.
first jaw-dropping moment within gaming after the appetizer?
I love that question. It was Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI was the moment. I had played other Final Fantasies because I love the franchise, but I think that was really the game where I first played a game that really moved me to be like, oh, this is something that's like really special and different that I am currently enjoying. Than Mario trying to save Peach, which is also enjoyable. But that was more entertainment, and I think Final Fantasy VI was the first time I noticed it was more than entertainment.
Yeah, you were actually like making decisions and thinking about it afterwards.
Yeah,
going
having
to bed,
emotional
game
reactions.
planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Compared to just running and grabbing the flag and being like,
Yeah.
done with this level, next one.
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
Gotcha. So with that happening, Final Fantasy ended up being a big deal to you.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
what age range were you around during that
Oh.
Final Fantasy VI?
Oh, maybe 12. That's a guess. 10 to 12-ish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is prior to high school.
Oh, for sure. My high school moments were the theme park, the Sims, the more computer based. Then that's when computer gaming came around. I'm that old. It started with console gaming and then it pivoted to computer games. But yeah, my high school experience was dominated by the theme SimCity, like those types of games.
So you like games to be moving around while you're doing stuff. You like those
Yeah.
RTS kind of games. Like
I do
real
like
time.
RTS games. I do. And I like any kind of simulation game. And then role-playing games. Like, that's the unfortunate reality of my life now. I say unfortunate. I love my children dearly. I wouldn't trade them for anything. But I don't have time for the 200-hour games, which are the games that I love to play, like the Legend of Zeldas and the Final Fantasies and the Skyrims and the really kind of involved ones.
Yeah, the deep ones where decision making is changing the entire game.
Correct. Those are the ones I like the best. But, there's a game for everyone. I'm enjoying Undertale. I love a good round of The Sims. I love a civilization moment. You can't like just one, I suppose.
So I'm curious, like while you were like in high school, you're playing The Sims, you're playing all these, other RTS games, keeping the mind busy and stuff like that. I'm wondering if at that point you were so in love with gaming that you're like, I'm going figure out some way to make this a job, or if that thought hasn't even arisen yet?
Oh no, that thought definitely had not come in my consciousness yet. You know, I grew up in a very small town in Texas. I played video games, but I was the only girl I knew in my entire town who played them. And so it was more of just a hobby that I did at home with my older brother. I didn't actually think about games as a career until much later. Actually, I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. I knew I wanted a job in psychology, but you have to have more than a bachelor's to really do anything. So I went to get my master's and become a therapist. And this was 2006, 2007, which was peak World of Warcraft era. And so it was then I was starting to
talk
see
about
as
that
I was,
a lot on your channel too.
I do. As I was doing therapy, I had many years into World of Warcraft. They were really concerned about the impact of online gaming because it had exploded. There was like 1 million monthly subscribers, probably more at the peak in World of Warcraft, 10 million, I think it was. So that's when I realized there was a space for research to be done in terms of how games are impacting the way we see and interact with the world, because there was concern about it and there was panic about it and there were scary headlines about it, but there wasn't any science behind it. So I wouldn't say even I necessarily thought games would be my career, but I thought games would be a good PhD project. That's like as far as my thought had gone at that point.
So where did the whole so obviously World of Warcraft was one of the dominoes that fell over.
Yes,
to
for sure.
Continue to, all this other stuff started happening because of that domino, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm kind of curious, like when you chose to do that, how much confidence did you have it turning into something that it is now? Where, now you're doing Take This.
Yeah.
You're doing all this other stuff. Was that like the initial plan, or was this just a side project that turned into a plan?
I guess it was kind of a side project. I mean, it became my PhD subject, which was great. And I think that I was very much on board thinking I was going to have a university and academic career. Like I was going to teach Psych 101. It would be great if I continued to do research into games. I was very fortunate with the position I got at Take This because there still aren't positions like I have at Take This. I occupy that liminal space between industry and academia. And I think we need more positions like that, but I was just really fortuitous to fall into like the Rachel-shaped hole that they were missing at Take This. I don't think I ever actually imagined this would be my career until it was, and I was like, well, this is great because it's perfect for me. Right? And I'm really happy to be here. Yeah.
So when tackling subjects, what was probably the first subject that you tackled or, wrapped your arms around? Mm-hmm. Maybe you slid off a little bit or so, I don't know. But what was the first topic that just like hit you in the soul? Where it was just like, I gotta go after this one because people are reading into this all wrong. I gotta put some sort of stamp on this.
Some science on it.
Yeah, put some science on it.
There was a lot of debate about violent video games, but that was never my specific interest because I didn't really play those games, and I also thought it was just a bunch of panic, and it didn't really interest me much. What really got me thinking, I need to pivot and I need to do research in this space was the concern about the social impact of games, because parents were expressing to me a deep-seated and great fear that their children were somehow atrophying their ability to socialize in traditional contexts, so like in face-to-face environments, because they were spending so much time playing games. And I hadn't really, seen that so much. Like you have the stereotype of the antisocial game player, but it was more this idea like they're already antisocial, or they already have no skills, or they're already lonely, so they play games. But there was this concern that it was somehow reversing all of these skills and abilities that we had already developed. And that seemed like unlikely. But there was such a concern about it. I thought, well, shoot, if they're that concerned about it, and I am also playing 40 hours of World of Warcraft a week, am I somehow losing my ability to function in other contexts? And so selfishly, that was really where my interest was in the beginning.
Okay, and what did you come to find to be like the real like meat and potatoes of that project? Did you
Hmm.
have your aha moment, or did you have your man, I should have listened to what they were saying kind of moment?
Well, you know what? It did get to the point because I heard it so many times. I started to think I was going to find a relationship that was negative. Like, I started to believe that I was going to find that games were somehow atrophying skills in some way because the concern was just so great. And it turns out that was not true. There are no social differences between people who play games and people who don't. In fact, you learn a lot of different social skills when you play games, like being able to carry on multiple lines of conversation at once, right? We call it multi-threading. Like, we're really good at doing that when we play games. So that was kind of an aha moment in that I was validated and I thought, I seem socially okay. Why are these people concerned? But also a bit of a, maybe they led me astray because I thought that they were going to be right. They had convinced me that something bad was happening, but there wasn't anything bad happening.
Got it, got it. All right, so now continuing down through your time of working with this and doing your research and figuring things out, what was a moment where you just kind of felt like, man, there just isn't enough information on this. I can't
Mm-hmm.
really figure out the like I can't patch this wound because there's just no
There's
medical.
no,
There's
yeah.
nothing to put on this to fix it. There's no site or source, or excuse me, I said both. There's no source to be able
Just
to
like,
slap on it and say, I just flex sealed this thing. It's done.
yeah, that really came to me when the addiction questions were coming up. So the World Health Organization designated gaming addiction. Oh, when was this? 2021, maybe. When those conversations were coming up, I found that those were very difficult to tackle because in the research, there was not any evidence to suggest, there still isn't, that games have somehow have addicting qualities. There was, in fact, evidence to the contrary to show that people use games, in ebbs and flows. And yes, some people use them problematically, but it seems to go in kind of waves, whereas an addiction is more of like a stable situation. So I found that when that was really entering the common discourse among news media and stuff, and they want to do a lot of interviews about addiction, my line was always like, well, there's not really research to support this position, so it seems very strange that the World Health Organization would designate it. And now we've since found out that they actually didn't have any research to designate it, which is why everyone was so confused by that decision. But it seemed to be more politically motivated or kind of pressure put on them to make this designation, but not like sufficient scientific evidence.
Gotcha. I have a very appropriate question from the chat. Z Black Rider asks, he says, question for Rachel. Has this pivoted into the repercussions of the COVID lockdown?
COVID did a lot of things for games. At
But
first,
it did a
I
lot for
thought it
you,
was
your research too.
did a lot. Yeah, no, I was very busy. Yeah, I have a talk on my YouTube channel specifically about games in the after times, games in the COVID times. If you want like a really long answer to that question, but basically, we started to see a public acknowledgement that games could be useful, which I was like so heartened by during COVID because people realized it was like the last fun, playful thing people could do together, but also be 6 feet apart from each other. As soon as COVID lockdowns ended, obviously that went away and it went back to like games are evil and the worst and why would anyone play them? The other thing that happened during COVID and games and studying games is the mass amount of people who came to games that didn't play games before. Like the gaming community was already so big and it became even bigger. I think the statistic for Twitch, like Twitch only was like 300% increase in viewership.
I liked your distinction between the two. You I thought this was kind of funny. You're like, there's a difference between gamers and players. And
There
I was
is.
like, yo, that's actually like a really good way to put it because like my daughter is a player. My wife
Yeah.
is a player. I'm a gamer.
Right.
Right? And like she enjoys to play game when she has time and whatnot. I don't think of it as like when I got time. I'm just gaming.
Yeah.
Either it's collecting rewards from Xbox, completing tasks within the game, having, a list or an ideal way that I'm going to attack like the year's worth of game. Oh, I'm going to beat this and I'm going to beat this and I'm going to go through this one specifically. And then I have to backtrack to one so then I can play two. There is a lot going on there and whatnot. So, but I'm sorry, continue.
No, you're right. I mean, and that alone is an important point. There are, like, my mom plays Wordle every day. I talk about this a lot in my videos because it's just funny. She's really stuck with it. She plays Wordle every day, but she would never, ever call herself a gamer. Whereas I haven't actively played games in a really long time. Like, I sporadically play Undertale, but I will always be a gamer. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm playing or not. And I think that is an important point to make.
Yep, keeping up on the news, seeing all that stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
That's stuff that gamers do. My wife,
Yeah.
she doesn't look at she had no idea when Tears of the Kingdom came out, even though she couldn't wait for it, but she didn't even know that it came out when it happened. So I got to surprise her for Mother's Day and be like, here's
that's
here's the new
fun.
Tears of the Kingdom, and she was stoked. But like I said, she's not like a gamer like that, so she's not looking at release dates. She's not looking at hype. She's not even knowing the price raise. She didn't know any of that. She like the $10 difference. It doesn't. It's just a video game price to her. She didn't know any difference between this and the past. Right. I could tell her, games used to be $50, and she'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like it's $20 more expensive.
Used to be $50.
And then she'll throw it in the well of the old like costs. The thing that the costs gone up and other things. So that makes sense or something like that. But
funny.
Absolutely it is. So phenomenal question, by the way, Z Black Rider. Thank you for coming through, saying what you have to say. If anybody else has any more questions or something like that, just list them on the side, put a question mark in front of it, and then state your question. And if we have time, I'll do my best to go on ahead and tackle that so, she can spit her bars and say whatever she got to say. But to continue on from where we left off, I'm more or less now wondering, all right, so you got this position now. You've been doing your research. Obviously, social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all these other things are coming to light. People are more in front of the camera than ever before, talking, saying what they have to say. You in particularly likes to make sure, as we said earlier, cite your sources. You like to make sure you have all that stuff in line. So what you're telling the community isn't a bunch of BS. I'm wondering where you thought or when you thought it was a good time to jump in front of a camera and say what you wanted to say. And how was it when you first started and you were your only view? Talk about that time before we get to where you are now.
Yeah, I love that question. So whenever I go to events, I've been going to events for a long time. I got my PhD in 2014. Doesn't matter what I'm talking about. Inevitably, somebody comes up to me and says, my kid is playing X. I'm concerned. Is it affecting them Y? And I always have to say the same spiel over and over again. So when COVID happened and the lockdowns happened, I do live in Canada, so we were locked down for a lot longer than in the States. People picked up hobbies, and I thought, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. And one of the first videos I made was talking about violent video games and violent crime, because that's always like the question that parents have.
Since like GTA 3, since way before
since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Way before then. Yeah.
Because you said in one of your videos that I watched that it was like an early game, like back in like the 50s or 60s or something like that.
Yeah, well, exactly. When games first came out. It was called Death Race. It was 1976.
Yeah, there you go.
And then it led to hearings, a series of hearings from the government in the 90s when Mortal Kombat came out. That was really kind of the breaking point for government regulation. So I said my spiel and I recorded it, and I edited it as best I could with iMovie and whatever. And I put it out there, and you're right, nobody was like finding my channel and watching it. But what I found really useful about that at that point was when people would ask me that question, instead of having to repeat myself, I just sent them a link. And I was like, if I knew it was going to be this great, I would have done this ages ago. So I don't just have to keep repeating myself.
Right.
And bonus, like the citations are there. So you can go find what you want to go read more.
Yeah, you're not just having to take me at face value. You can actually look it up for yourself.
I spliced
You're doing
those
everything
images
to
in.
say, take this and go.
and go away. So that's what it was like in the beginning. And I tasked myself when I made my channel to do one video a week for a year. That was the goal I set myself. And I did it. I filmed, I scripted, I wrote, I produced one video a week for a year. And it was a lot. And I felt a lot like I was just speaking into an echo chamber. But I also felt like I was getting my expertise. Like those videos that I wrote in the first year, most of them, the vast majority, were things I already very well knew, things I talked about all the time. I was just scripting it into a 7-minute video, and editing it and putting it out into the world. Now, if you follow my channel now, I make content far less frequently because I'm also a lot busier and doing a lot of other things. But at least I had like the base. I secured the base of information
got the foundation.
in the first year. Yeah.
No doubt. Okay. So you finally got the foundation. You're good now. You've been making. You said you make videos less now, but I've seen you on stages doing presentations and stuff like that. This career that you've evolved has really moved. Has really grown, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk about the growth within the industry that you're doing, some of the things that maybe stifled you a little bit, and some of the things that you may have thought that were going to stifle you actually propelled you?
Yeah. When I started, before I was at Take This, my presentations were always at academic conferences, and there's 10 people in the room, and you spend weeks making a presentation, you give it to 10 people in the room, and then that's it. Those are the only people who ever saw it. So I knew, again, with YouTube channels, like, how can I make these presentations and film them and give them to the masses and have them exist and not just kind of like wither away? And so I started doing that on the YouTube channel, and you've seen some of those. And those gave me incredible opportunities, actually, to be on stages and talk about other things. And I don't think I realized that was going to be one of the outcomes of creating a YouTube channel.
That's incredible.
Is showing. It was really fantastic. I've gotten so many opportunities from the YouTube channel where they're like, I saw you. You're competent at speaking. You're mildly funny, maybe. And so why don't you come and get on the stage and talk about, something.
They said, you ain't really dry, you ain't boring, get your ass on stage.
Get over here and come.
We want to hear what you got to say.
Exactly. And in exchange, I say, that's great, but if it's filmed, can I have it so I can put it on YouTube so it's not only the people in the room who hear me talk? Yeah. And it's really kind of become an ever-evolving process because I was always annoyed, especially with the violent video game argument, is such a great example, that we know so much in the research community and like none of it ever gets out. All you see is like the crappy headline of like, killer played video games. And it's like, okay, killer wore shoes, right? Like, great, everyone plays games. But I wanted that information to be like, actually what we know from 30 years of studying it is that there's no direct relationship between shoes or video games and real world violence.
Gotcha, man. That's incredible right there. So something that's been going on for generations now. I'm curious if it's ever been a topic that you actually took on and ran with. And it's an evident one that we currently see, but it goes back many generations, like I said. Console fanboyism. I've actually seen you've had a video about this on your channel as well, where you talk about this. But while I have you here today, I think it is really good and healthy to talk about that a little bit, just for the fact that on my channel, I have people of all different, platforms that come on here. I'm not going to lie, it's predominantly a lot of Xbox folks that come here, but PlayStation folks come here, Nintendo folks come here, PC, whatever you play, Steam. People come through this channel and check it out and see what's kind of cracking sometimes. And I allow people to crack jokes. So if they, my console's better, like, I don't care. Like, if you think that, then you think that, keep it moving. But as for you, I'm sure you've delved into it and seen some of the toxicity that happens, some of the like real personal attacks that happen, the threats between content creators or even between just your average Joe and a developer. Actually, last year I can bring up a specific incident that happened before God of War came out, which they were there were console fans or fanboys or whatever you want to call them, the overzealous one that were sending like inappropriate pictures of their genitalia to developers in saying we need to know more about this game or a release date, as if that correlates. I want to know, from a mind like yours, where do you think a person thinks that agitating a developer, sending a pizza to their house unsolicited, sending images of their genitalia, threatening of any types of sort when it comes to just a video game? What do you think about that kind of stuff?
Well, it's awful. First
absolutely.
of all, it's a real problem. It's a real problem because fans feel what we call morally motivated. They feel that they are motivated on moral reasons, like they genuinely feel like I deserve to know this, and why aren't you telling me? Whereas from the developer's perspective, it's a different ballgame. They're doing their best to make this game and make it the best it could be. It is really difficult to navigate. The internet is hostile. Just generally, there's a lot of research that talks about why people are more hostile on the internet. For instance, there's this idea called online disinhibition. It's this idea that you don't know me and you can't see me. I'm Ham Solo. You don't know who I am.
Yeah, you can't
I'm going to
touch
say
me,
horrible things. You can't find me, and I'm just going to say these things, and it's going to be fine. And there's also this idea that like what you're saying and what you're doing doesn't have real world repercussions on the person you're doing it to. It's online and offline is a false dichotomy. People think they're separate. I'm going to say horrible things to this person on the internet because I think it's funny. But what you're not thinking about is this person is significantly impacted by you sending them these pictures, or fake calling the police to their house, or sending them a pizza from a stranger. Yeah, they have significant long-term mental health repercussions. So I think in terms of how do we like move past it or address it, I've talked about it a lot, both formally and informally, but we need, standardization in the way that devs are told to interact with players. For instance, some devs are told interact with them, respond to them. You're required to respond to them, whereas other companies are like, definitely don't do that. Don't feel the need at all to respond to them. I'm really encouraged by Bungie recently. Bungie successfully sued someone who was harassing their dev on the internet and sending them death threats and horrible messages. And they won the lawsuit. They went to bat for their employee and said, that's not okay. We're going to sue you because you should not be doing this. And I think we need to see more kind of consistent action to show like this is actually not a behavior that's okay. And not only that, we're going to pursue it with some sort of punishing or, litigation. There'll be a consequence to your action. It's not just the Wild West out here. You can't just say what you want and just think it's fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that answer. But it also brings me to another question that's kind of been looming a little bit. And that is like, so if you see it like that, like I'm wondering like, where do we kind of draw the line or like figure out a way to, because one of my things that I personally think is like one of the biggest issues in gaming, which actually speaks more to a bigger issue of the world, is just communication and how to convey something to where they feel hurt. I mean, they feel like they're being spoken to, and then also the other way around as well. So how exactly do you see, and this is more or less coming from just a creative mind. I don't need your doctor, like, exact opinion on this. I just need, like, an honest thought of how you think this would go down. So, like, I'm curious as to how you think they, like people within the industry versus the actual gamers should actually speak to each other. Because as of right now, as you were just saying, some people are open to be able to speak. Others are like, moved around like the president. Like, don't nobody tell anybody that we're here. Coming down this block, just open up the road. Can't nobody be outside. like that's what it kind of seems like with certain developers. But then the other developers are very loud, joking, and sometimes they even make videos joking around about the kind of stuff that happens within gaming.
Yeah.
Do you think there is some sort of meeting or like a fair ground where we can speak to each other and just be humans engaging? And I mean, it's hard to do that with the internet, though, right?
I know. I mean, if I'm giving like my utopian rose-colored glasses, I would love for there to be a way. I think there is a way as long as everyone is respectful. The problem is people tend to not be respectful and instead are demanding things. You have to think too. The fan's perspective is, I've been waiting for Starfield for ages. Where is it? Give it to me. And the dev's perspective is, I'm working 80 hours a week, giving all of my life away to make this game for you. And all I see now are these hostile messages on the internet saying, where's this game? Like, of course I'm not going to want to respond to you. I'm dying over here. I'm burnt out. I'm overworked. I'm underpaid. I'm tired, So I think if we just had a little bit of shared perspective taking, maybe a little more emotional intelligence, as your wife pointed out, maybe we would meet that bridge in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. Right now, the only way I'm really seeing that bridge getting met is when people take themselves not from just online and actually go out to these events. Go
for
meet
sure.
the people in person.
For sure.
I mean,
that is a much better way.
Once that happens, it's like an explosion of positivity from the interior to said person. That could have been a nobody before this event.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This person's getting 10, 20, maybe 100 views, and then all of a sudden after they meet said people or whatnot, now they're getting 50, 200, maybe 1,000 or a couple thousand views on their stuff just because of the perception that's seen. Can you talk about what that would be like for the outside person looking in, seeing that, this person walked in, nobody knew them, they went to this event and then came back, and now it seems like everybody loves and knows this person?
I mean, it's just about being kind and being a human, connecting with another human over something we all love, Like, I think that there's a lot more power in going to like a PAX panel and talking to your favorite game dev and asking the question you want to ask them in a real kind of like kind and open way versus just yelling into the void on the internet. Like, there's a huge difference in those two actions. So, I mean, I think we just need less yelling into the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just generally, yeah.
I think that's pretty obvious, but a lot of people would be blindsided hearing that. So,
yeah,
so
I know. It's the simple things, right? Yeah.
It 100% is. But, I mean, we're down. We got about 15 minutes left just to kind of give you guys a heads up that are watching this right now. I appreciate everybody that's pulled up. I see, Z Black Rider, Silent Cypher, Dragonheart Yobi, Vincent Vega, Sour Blow, Surex Man, Dark Optimus, Dola Knight, Drawn TJ, Sergeant Sentinel Gaming. A bunch of you guys pulled up, and I really appreciate that. I'm sure Dr. Kowert appreciates that as well. She's getting to be able to spread her message around. And you guys going ahead and hit that description, hit that subscribe button. It's 100% free, and educate yourself on some of this stuff that's going on within gaming and whatnot, because as I said about 80 times already, she cites her sources. She has some sources. So what you're getting from her isn't BS like maybe you're sometimes getting from me. So, so anyways, enjoy. Go on ahead and check it out, because I do this podcast on the whim sometimes. And, you know, sometimes I have some information or have some thoughts, and they're not exactly always right. Okay? And I got a quick question that kind of leads right into that. What do you think about this whole big boom that's kind of been happening with gaming and online? And online, I'm talking in specifically with like podcasting, streaming, and stuff like that. How do you see that time being spent? Do you think that's something that is very helpful and pivotal to like the human race or something like that? Or do you think that it's just something that is nice but not to be over enjoyed?
I mean, too much of anything is bad for you, right? Too much water is bad for you. But I think that games are wonderful tools. I talk about them all the time as tools because I think we utilize them in specific ways. Some people play games for social community. Some people play games for stress relief. Some people play games just for fun, or as a social thing to do with people in a physical shared space. I think that games are wonderful. I think that streaming is fantastic. I personally love streaming. I don't have, not actually streaming, watching other people stream. I don't have a lot of time to play a lot of these games that come out. I want to see Tears of the Kingdom. I haven't finished Breath of the Wild. It's my greatest shame as a gamer. It's fine. I take it. But I can watch people play it and feel like I am experiencing it. And if we go through the research side, you know, after COVID, there was a lot of work done about streaming, and people were really turning to live streaming over pre-recorded like YouTube videos because it made them feel less alone when they were being isolated and stuck at home in COVID. There's several research papers about that. So I think that streaming is a fantastic new kind of piece of our digital media landscape, and I personally am a fan.
Phenomenal. And Silent Cypher actually hits me with a $10 super chat saying, appreciate the work you do, Rachel. Or, excuse me, Dr. Rachel. I have an unending respect for anyone in your field. It takes a mental fortitude that many other jobs do not. Thanks for spending time with us today. 100.
Very happy to be spending time with you today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Silent Cypher, for being here. Thank you, Rachel, for being here and doing all this with me. Now we're going to kind of get into some of the what I like to call quick hitter questions, just because I know we have to respect your time. We got about 11 minutes to the T. I want to get you out of here right on time.
Thank you.
So with that being said, I want to know what 3 games, and I usually ask what are the best 3 games that you played this year. But as a person that is very busy, doing what you're doing, I want you to answer this differently. I want to ask you, what were the 3 most impactful games to you in your field?
Oh, in my field?
Yes.
That's different than me as a
very
human
different
being.
So we're taking it out of the personal.
We are.
It's all business.
In my field, I'm gonna have to say EverQuest over World of Warcraft because EverQuest was really there first. So EverQuest would be the first one. Stardew Valley, I think, was pretty pivotal. Can
you explain on that one? I'm a little interested.
Yeah, Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is a beautiful game that tackles mental health in a way that hasn't happened in other games. And usually people don't think of Stardew Valley as a mental health game, but you have Shane, right, with his troubles with addiction. You have the old man, I forget his name, who talks about loneliness. You have a lot of these themes and narratives in the game that are presented very beautifully and not in a stereotyped way, in a very kind of nuanced, gentle way. And I think it's an absolutely beautiful game. And it gets a lot of attention in my field when we talk about mental health games, because a game doesn't have to be like depression game to be a game about mental health, right? It could be a fun game that actually tackles it in an insightful and nuanced way. And then Hellblade. Hellblade is the gold standard of games that represent mental health in an accurate way. So those would be my 3. Yeah.
I didn't see that coming, even though I probably should have, because that is one of the main. That's like one of the main things that it lets you know when you turn on the game. Like, yo, this
Hellblade,
is gonna be wild.
This is gonna be deep. Yeah, it's gonna be deep. So get ready.
It's gonna be something. But here's a game that I'm kind of curious that you didn't mention, and I want to hear what your thoughts are on it, because this game to me was extremely fun, very interesting, but talked about tackling mental health quite a bit. It was very it was very popular in that sense, and the game's name is Psychonauts. I want to hear what you have to say about
love
Rad.
Psychonauts. Look, Double Fine can do no wrong. Let's just
Tim
open
Schafer,
with that.
shout out to him.
My favorite. My game. If I had a game dev hero, it would be him. Yes, I love Psychonauts. I think that it takes a playful and fun, but yet accurate way of talking about mental health. Like not many other games do. I should have mentioned Psychonauts. I'm particularly a fan of Psychonauts 2. I
so
really
good.
like
So
when I
good.
think about, actually the new book is coming out. There's a book on Psychonauts 2 coming out. Ashley Escueda wrote it. It's called The Art of Psychonauts 2. And
I didn't
I'm
know that.
interviewed
Wow.
in the book. Yeah, no, it's going to be beautiful. She did a lot of work with Tim Schafer and his team, and it's going to be it's for pre-order. You should definitely order it. But we talked about the way that like grief and like the different forms of the different mental health terms are represented visually in the game. And I think it's just absolutely brilliant. Like doubts are sticky. And even when
Yeah,
you
they're
kill them,
yucky.
they still linger. And it's like, it's just such an interesting way of conceptualizing it and helping us as human beings change the way we see and interact with the world. It fundamentally changed the way that I perceive doubts, truly. Because I was like, this is so smart. Like, even when you kill it, it's still there. Of course it is, because it's a doubt. I love Psychonauts. And also, I will say Day of the Tentacle might be actually the game that changed the way I think about games. Maybe because that predated Final Fantasy VI. I remember absolutely loving that game and staying up far too late to play it. It was a great game.
Gotcha. All right, so one last little side question before I finish off
Yes.
this list of questions that I got for you, so you can get moving. Is I want to know, like, what do you think about when somebody says, "I'm playing this game to get my brain going"? So, like, I've seen somebody in the chat, Vincent Vega, said, "I like puzzle games, like Talos Principle and the Witness. Very therapeutic to me as they slow me down, and I can enjoy them longer." It makes, if that makes any sense. Can you
does
go
make
off of
sense.
what he just said right there?
Yeah, people like different games for different things. I think a lot of time we think, puzzle games are the only good game to play or something like that. Whereas other people really like Halo. We were talking about Halo before the show. Some people, Halo is what really does it for them. It helps them maybe slow down in their own way and cut off, the thoughts about their day to day and just focus on something in the moment that is enjoyable and fun and entertaining and fast paced. And I think the key word that Vincent says there is therapeutic. All games have the potential to be therapeutic. Actually, all activities have the potential to be therapeutic. I find baking to be very therapeutic. But we have to find what works for us, what helps us manage our mood, what helps us slow down and take a minute for ourselves. I think especially, in Western culture in the US and in Canada, we have this idea that it's the opposite of work is play, but there's a very famous quote from a psychologist, Brian Sutton Smith, that says the opposite of work, the opposite of play isn't work. The opposite of play is depression. We all need to be playing throughout our lifespan. It's a very powerful force for mood management. So you have to find what works for you so you can have those playful moments, whether it's puzzle games or Halo or Undertale or whatever it might be at the moment.
Gotcha. Real quick, what's your
Yes.
favorite studio and what game best represents?
It's got to be Square Enix. It's got to be. It just has to. I just have to. Final
Okay.
Fantasy VI is my all-to number one, closely followed by Final Fantasy X. I just love the magic. I love the emotionality of the stories. I love that it's an ensemble cast. And also, they had strong female characters way before anyone else. And as a girl in a small town in Texas who already didn't have anyone to play games with, seeing women represented in powerful, competent leadership roles was really, obviously, I guess, formative in the development of my love for games.
All right. And what was I going to say there? Okay. What gaming genre do you just not rock with? Like, you just don't really like it that much?
First-person shooters. And listen, it's not that I don't like them.
You don't gotta give no excuse.
It's that I am not good at them. I got super into America's Army when it came out because it was free, and I don't know, somebody introduced me to it. And I broke so many mice playing that game because I kept throwing flashbangs and they would ricochet back into my own face. And I would blind myself and I would die. And it was so frustrating. Yeah, it was so frustrating. I don't play them at all anymore. I'm just not, I don't have the reaction time for it.
No doubt, no doubt. And then if there were 2 games that are dead now that you could bring back to life, what would those 2 games be?
Oh, that I could bring. Theme Hospital, although it kind of came back with 2 Point Hospital. That was kind of a reboot. Theme Hospital was one of my favorite games when I was in high school. I would bring that one back. What else would I bring back that's dead now? Oh, goodness. I don't know. Maybe World of Warcraft back when it was in its glory days. I tried to play again recently. I've been gone for too long. There's too many buttons. I can't do it. So maybe
so like a remake of World of Warcraft?
A remake of like when, Lich King came out, old school. Let's bring it old school World of Warcraft.
No doubt. Okay. And then I got these last 2 questions that I'm going to combine into one that's what frustrates you in gaming personally, and then also what would be a dream come true.
What frustrates me is the normalization of hate and harassment in gaming culture. And how it's become ubiquitous with if you're just expected, if you want to play Call of Duty, that you will just be subjected to hate and harassment. And we've just become apathetic to that. And that really upsets me. And I'm trying to change the normalization of that in the culture. And what would I love to see? That change. I would love to see there to be kind of an industry-wide kind of push and standardization of like, we're not okay with that. And women, of non-men, anyone can go into a Call of Duty lobby and feel like, I don't want to pick on Call of Duty. Anyone can go into a gaming lobby and feel safe and secure that they are welcome to be there. Because gaming spaces are supposed to be welcoming for everyone to be there. And that's what I would love to see.
All right. And then to round out this episode, because we literally got less than 60 seconds left.
Yes.
I want you to tell me what are the describe gaming in just 3 words.
Fun, community, and exciting.
Fun, community, exciting. And I tell you what, this has been an exciting episode, and I thank everybody that came through to watch this show. Please, one more time, Dr. Rachel Kowert, let everybody know where they can find you.
You can find me on YouTube at Psychgeist. It's PSYCHGEIST. I am on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it at Dr. Kowert. And there you can also find links. I do a monthly newsletter. I have a website, blah, 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 blah. But if you want the sources, YouTube is YouTube. It's where you find me.
Awesome. Well, it's been phenomenal. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for showing up for this short little version of Behind Them Sticks, but I'd really love to have Dr. Rachel Kowert come back here so we can talk about some other things and maybe have some topics on hand so we can kind of have a specific subject that we talk about. But with that being said, you guys, I got to stop here dead and cold and leave you with the message I always leave you with. And that is your boy Ham Solo from TSWS Gaming, just letting you know to keep it gaming or keep it moving. Peace out, y'all.